This is a quick reminder video on how to do a cross stitch. It can be seen in patterns as the acronym CS. It is not difficult. It is a quick little stitch that makes a cross going up your pattern. So I've already done 2. So I'm about to do a new row doing the cross stitch. These 2 are just plain knit stitches here, and this is where I need to do the new stitch. So what the cross stitch is, it is slip the first stitch as if to purl, knit the next stitch, yarn over, and then pass the slipped stitch over these 2. So you're passing it over a knit and passing it over the yarn over stitch, simply by putting your needle into the slip stitch and pulling it up and over. I need to do this for my entire round, and then I'll show how to work the cross stitch on the next round. So I need to do it again. Slip as if to purl, putting the right needle into the stitch as if to purl, keeping my yarn in the back, and just slide it off. Knit the next stitch, yarn over, and I'm coming from the front up into the back, so it goes over the top of the needle, putting my left needle into that slipped stitch, and I use my pointer finger to hold the yarn over, and I pull the slipped stitch over the 2 stitches that I had, the knit stitch and the yarn over. And that's what it looks like on the back. These 2 are just my knits. To get to it again, slip, knit, yarn over, pass the slipped stitch over. And I'm going to do this for the whole round. And I suggest that you make sure that your tension is not terribly tight, because what you don't want is difficulty getting your slipped stitch over. And I'll show you why and what I mean. So here's my slip stitch. There's no tension on that, it's just slipped over. But if I pull that knit stitch super tight and then I yarn over, it can get kind of tight. So just relax your hands, because now with it being tight, it just feels tight on the needle, and it can be a little difficult to get into these stitches on the next round. So just keep your hands relaxed. No death grip in knitting, not necessary. Just relax and keep a nice even tension all the way around. If you find that your tension is too tight, what I'm doing here, other than relaxing, I get a little bit more slack in my yarn. So slipping and I'm pulling. When I do my knit stitch, I'm just keeping it a little bit loose, just to give it some breathing room. Yarn over, and you can see I've got give. See how loose that is? And then I can slip it over. And I can just pull on it to tighten it up. You can also, if you find tension becoming a problem, you can change your needle size and go up in your needle size, as long as you still get gauge. If you check for gauge, I don't always do that, because who has time to make a swatch when you just want to get to knitting? But if I'm doing a cardigan or a particular sweater, then I may bite the bullet and do a swatch to make sure that I get gauge. Doing swatches to make sure that you get gauge is a helpful thing to do, because then you know if the garment will fit, or it gives you a better idea if it will fit you. But sometimes even if you do get gauge, at least for me, it doesn't always make a difference. I have to just go by the sizing. Whoops. Slip, knit, yarn over, pass, slip stitch over. And the yarn that I'm working with is Plotolupi. I hope that's how it's pronounced. That's how I'm pronouncing it, so hopefully I'm saying it correctly. It's an Icelandic yarn. It's unspun, so it's not like your average yarn. And it's light and airy, but when you knit it up, it becomes nice, warm, and dense. And I'm knitting one whole, it's called I think they're calling them pallets of unspun. So this was one whole disc originally, but I started taking some off. That way I could knit it double. Because I found with this, it pulls apart very easy. And I didn't want to deal with that when I was knitting. So I found if I held this double, it works like a charm. But there is a way I found, if you ever do get this again, and this is a reminder for myself, getting this again, there is a way to not split it. Just remember, when you get this, it's already wrapped around, so you have an end on the outside, and you have the end also on the inside that usually sticks out. You can pull them both at the same time from the outside and the inside, and it just magically unwinds as you knit, which is great. And the Plotolupi, I purchased this from the Woolly Thistle. And it wasn't that much, which is nice. Whoops. Slip, knit, yarn over. just give it a stretch and just give it a little tug, not too hard, just to stretch the project out. Slip, knit, yarn over, pass over. Okay, slip the marker. Now, what you want to do when you get to these crossed stitches, it's super easy. You just knit them across. Some patterns don't tell you how to manage cable stitches or special stitches, however you want to describe them, in the pattern. They're assuming, they being the designer, they're assuming that you can figure it out or that you know. Sometimes the only way to find out is to test it or look it up. So this is a nice little reminder to remember that, again, when you get to the crossed stitch, treat it as two individual stitches. You don't need to knit them together. And by doing that, you get the crossed braid effect. It stacks up nicely, nice and evenly as it goes up. And this is a test knit that I'm doing for Marnie Designs. It's a hat project called the Crossroad hat. Super easy repeat that can be added on really any project, especially if you create your own pattern, you can use this in anything, and it's an easy memorization, easy pattern to memorize, where all you do is the knit, knit, cross stitch, knit, knit, cross stitch all the way around, and the next round is nothing but a knit stitch, and then again repeat, like right here, cross stitch. And this is what it looks like. Nice little braids. Looks like my tension was a little bit too loose right there. You want them to be pretty even. That's how you do the cross stitch.